SEGA and Ryuga Gotoku Studio are back with Yakuza Kiwami 2, the third consecutive release on Nintendo Switch 2 for the Yakuza Like a Dragon series. This release may be the most notable of the three, following Yakuza 0 Director's Cut and alongside Yakuza Kiwami's 60fps Switch 2 upgrade. Yakuza Kiwami 2 is the first Dragon Engine game in the long-running series to be brought over to Switch 2, and it's a litmus test for what's possible on the platform with Yakuza Kiwami 3 and Dark Ties on the horizon. The Switch 2 version isn't perfect, but it's impressive, and Ryuga Gotoku Studio may have a lot more in store for the platform. Yakuza Kiwami 2 is a remake of 2006's Yakuza 2, fully rebuilt in the Dragon Engine, RGG Studio's premier in-house game development engine. Following the events of Yakuza Kiwami, Kazuma Kiryu is forced back into the Yakuza life after Yukio Terada, the fifth chairman of the Tojo clan, is assassinated right in front of him. Having to leave Haruka behind at home, Kiryu goes to Sotenbori, Osaka, on behalf of Terada in order to broker peace between the Tojo clan and Omi Alliance. However, Ryuji Goda, the head of the Goryu clan, also known as the Dragon of Kansai, is stopping at nothing to wage a war between the rival Yakuza organizations. These events, along with Kiryu's first bout with Goda, set the stage for what's at stake within the opening chapters of the game, ensuring you're hooked and guessing about what will happen next. Yakuza Kiwami 2 is far from a perfect Yakuza title, but I still think it's a really great time. Despite some of the cut content from the original Yakuza 2, I think the remake still delivers one of the strongest narratives in the series. The dynamic between Kiryu and organized crime detective Kaoru Sayama, the arrogant and ambitious nature of antagonist Ryuji Goda, and the absurd but captivating moments of the main story make Yakuza Kiwami 2 a memorable game. These are just a few standout points, and although the combat in the game is not as refined or seamless as later Like a Dragon entries, there's still fun to be had beating up Yakuza and enemy gang members on the streets of Kamurocho and Sotenbori, Yakuza Kiwami 2's main destinations. Yakuza Kiwami 2 retains the core gameplay of Yakuza 6 The Song of Life, the game RGG Studio released prior in 2016, with some notable tweaks and new features, including charge attacks, an improved weapon system, and the reintroduction of taunting. It's not the strongest Kiryu has felt by any means, but there's still a lot of moves and heat actions you can pull off. My biggest gripes lie in the actual feedback you get from combat and overall balance. For example, Kiryu's attacks feel less impactful compared to later entries like a Dragon Gaiden, The Man Who Erased His Name. But this can be mostly remedied by improving stats and unlocking more abilities the further you progress the game. On Nintendo Switch 2, Yakuza Kiwami 2 retains all features and content from the original release of the remake, including the Majima Saga Story Mode, the Virtual On and Virtua Fighter 2 arcade games, and a slew of optional sub-stories and mini-games. It also comes with the Clan Creator Bundle DLC at no additional cost, along with other bonuses from all the previously released updates. In addition to Japanese voiceovers with Japanese and English text options, there are French, Italian, German, Spanish, Latin American Spanish, Brazilian Portuguese, and Russian text options, which are new to the Switch 2, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series X and S releases. The Switch 2 version of Yakuza Kiwami 2 runs at 1080p 30fps in docked mode and 30fps in handheld mode, with what appears to be a dynamic resolution. Despite the 30fps framerate lock, the port is impressive considering the original PlayStation 4 and Xbox One releases aimed for 900p. The Dragon Engine was very demanding on consoles back when Yakuza Kiwami 2 originally released, resulting in some hiccups with gameplay elements when trying to run above 30fps. What's more, load times are considerably faster in the Switch 2 version now, thanks to the SSD technology that wasn't widely adopted in consoles at that time. Performance is really steady at 30fps for the most part, and Kamurocho and Sotenbori look as vibrant and as colorful as I remember. In this case, I think RGG Studio managed to hit a sweet spot for the performance and visuals for their first Dragon Engine port on Switch 2, but there's definitely room for improvement, knowing how capable Nintendo and Nvidia's hardware is. My few performance-related gripes come with occasional frame pacing issues and some frame rate dips while exploring in densely crowded areas or playing some of the mini-games, including karaoke. There's also a slightly softer look to the game that can be especially noticeable around hair detail, but these oddities aren't glaring enough to take away from the overall experience, in my eyes. For now, I'd like to hope that RGG Studio is using Yakuza Kiwami 2 as the testing grounds for optimization efforts in Yakuza Kiwami 3 and Dark Ties and future titles, such as ports of Yakuza Like a Dragon and Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. It's clear that RGG Studio is heavily invested in Switch 2, since Yakuza Kiwami 2 is the third game on the platform in the span of 5 months. Although it's not related to performance, I did want to bring up the price of the game and its physical release to give a full picture of what everyone gets on Switch 2. Just like Yakuza Kiwami on Switch 2, Yakuza Kiwami 2 costs $29.99 digitally and $34.99 physically. However, both games are unfortunately shipping on a game keycard. In Yakuza Kiwami 2's case, the game's file size is roughly 28.1 gigabytes on Switch 2, which makes me wish that 32 gigabyte game cards were still an option for developers and publishers. I'm having a really good time exploring Yakuza Kiwami 2's action-packed and suspenseful story before Yakuza Kiwami 3 and Dark Ties is out. After playing the port for several hours, I'm still not used to exploring Kamurocho and Sotenbori in handheld mode, since the image quality and performance is better than what I played on PS4 all those years ago. Yakuza Kiwami 2 is a really good showing for what the Yakuza Like a Dragon franchise is capable of on Nintendo Switch 2, along with anything else that RGG Studio could have in store on the platform. The port could be better, and I'm expecting better ports in the future as developers become accustomed to the hardware, but it's still a great experience in both docked and handheld modes. Whether it's beating up Yakuza on the streets, managing a cabaret club, or helping Kamurocho and Sotenbori citizens out of a bind, Yakuza Kiwami 2 offers so much content that will keep you engaged. On Switch 2, the portability factor simply cannot be understated, now that we've gotten to a point where the limitations players face with the original Switch aren't as prevalent. If you're a Nintendo fan wanting to get into the Yakuza series, there's no better time to do it than now. Final Weapon is giving Yakuza Kiwami 2 on Switch 2 a 4 out of 5 stars. SEGA and RGG Studio provided a Nintendo Switch 2 copy of Yakuza Kiwami 2 for review purposes.